Good afternoon. Welcome to the Thursday, November
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Let's start that again. Hi. Welcome to Tuesdays with CKLS for November 2025. See, it's a little brain fog going on. My friends laugh at me. Um, um, we have today, and we have one more session for Tuesdays with CKLS. And Liz, would you like to give us the 3-minute spiel on what we're going to do that day?
I don't know. What are we doing that day? My calendar in front of
Annual
me.
reports.
Oh, hey, yeah. The thing I do every year. We're totally together, you guys. It's great. Annual reports. We're just going to briefly go over what we do here at CKLS, our pre-filling those cheat sheets for you, and like the order that we'll do it in, and how when I do pre-fills and all the other stuff and the fun stuff. And then also, I will advertise the state report annual survey and some of the changes that they had. But Alice will obviously have her own um, thing that she puts out, so I will send links to that as well.
And Liz, for everybody's clarification, go ahead and throw the CKLS tracker
Oh,
um,
absolutely.
in the chat today because this is a time for you to grab on and shove it in your browser if you haven't looked at it in a while. Of course, some things are not going to be updated. You're not going to see your final weeding numbers and some of those things. So this is your chance to look and see if you need to get some more CE done. Today's Tuesday with CKLS is an item that you can add to that CE list. And of course, that online training next month for annual reports. And then we're working on the dates for in-person training for January. But Liz has got a lot of work to do before, we can meet together. So today is your Meet the New Director um, exciting presentation. Alicia has been with us officially for 2 months and 2 days, but unofficially, she's worked here like 10 days. She went to KLA. But she's ran her first staff meeting. She signed a bunch of vacation requests to get us through the end of the year. And she shared some good things that she's learned so far, and she shared some things, at least with me, that are things that we'll be looking at in the future. So I've got a handful of questions for her, but if you do have a question, you may go ahead and put it straight in the public chat. That way, everybody can see it. And if she doesn't get to those questions today, I'll make sure that they're posted and that she sends them out to the CKLS members group. So Alicia, I think one of the things that I get asked the most about you is, what's your background? What do you know about libraries and what do you know about Kansas?
Okay, so I grew up in Kansas. I was born in Stafford, Kansas. I went to grade school in St. Francis, Kansas. And these towns are going to get progressively smaller as I go. And then I went to junior high and part of high school in Mankato, Kansas. Graduated from Pike Valley, which and lived in Cortland, Kansas. And then I went to college in a couple of different places. I did a little stint at Cloud County Community College to, anything to save up the money. I actually got a scholarship, a singing scholarship there. So, and my degree or my associate degree from there was in travel and tourism. I was going to become um, a travel agent that did those tours that you see where I would lead people on these tours all over the world. That was the plan. But that obviously did not was not where I ended up. I went to K-State and my undergraduate was mostly in hotel restaurant management. So I did fun things like international labor relations, working with unions, all kinds of fun classes like that. I got to my senior year and I did a practicum and discovered that I actually didn't enjoy working in hotels and restaurants. So immediately transferred to Emporia State and got my library degree from there. I then moved, my first job was in Baltimore, Maryland at the Enoch Pratt Free Library. I think I said in my introductory email that my little fun fact from there was that I worked for our former Library of Congress librarian. Um, Now, I didn't know her well, so that's my only claim to fame is that I actually worked for her for a couple of years, not that I actually was best buddies with her. Um, and that job gave me a lot of, I worked in a teeny tiny little library. There were three of us. We had a circulation person, the director, and then I was the children's librarian. I also served as the assistant director when the director was out of the building. And I worked in an area that was very near like a methadone treatment clinic. So we had a high percentage of people who were unhoused and that had some challenges. And so that one taught me a lot about being flexible and resilient, that you had to kind of roll with the punches and just, come up with solutions that may be a little unconventional, but that worked for that particular branch library. And then I missed Kansas. I moved back. I unfortunately moved to the Missouri side for a little while, but I worked for the Kansas City Public Library for about 18 years. And in that library, I started as the head of the children's department at our central library. And then I went to outreach and did homebound books and senior services. Part of that was getting people in my library excited about senior services, as well as actually working directly with seniors. And then I became a branch manager. One of the branches that was kind of an interesting mix of people who were what I called the Brookside soccer moms and people who were fairly high poverty. So we had a really interesting mix of people that came in, and that I learned a lot more about managing people at that particular job. That was where I got a lot of really good experience working with hands-on every day and working with staff to help them to be better librarians and staff people. So that was probably the thing I enjoyed most about that job. Then I decided I really needed a big change, so I moved to Henrico, Virginia, and the Henrico Public Library is about 10, it's 9 branches, but we also consider our outreach department a branch. So that was a fairly large system. I started out in collection development. I was hired to help with opening day collections, and was managing very large amounts of money and buying tons of teen books and bestsellers and lots of music and DVDs at that point. I did that for a couple of years, and then I decided that I was actually, once the opening day collections were purchased, that this was not going to be enough work for me, that I was going to get bored very quickly. So I decided that it was time to move back into the public side. I missed working with people. I missed interacting and really getting to know other staff well. So I moved back over to that side. And I was a public services administrator. So I was, I guess, what you would consider third in command. We had a director and assistant director, but most of the day-to-day public decisions were made by me. And then eventually we added a second person so that to kind of split up the work. And I oversaw youth services. I oversaw the training department, such as it was. It was one person, but we called it a department. I worked closely with some of the non-public service areas. And then the pandemic hit, and we really had fun. So I went through having to figure out how to do curbside services and how to manage some very, very stressed out people. I had about 150 people that reported in my chain. So I would often find myself out in parking lots with people who were very anxious and distressed about the fact that we were starting to move back toward being in buildings. Um, so I learned a lot about that and managing stress and managing people that were not having the best time at work. Um, and a lot of my job since then has been a lot of hiring, HR, training was a lot of my focus. And in addition to the day-to-day, um, should I call 911 or should I do this, kinds of questions. So I had a lot of those kinds of things. And the thing I enjoyed most about that was that I had some really exceptional branch managers that made work a joy for me. I could really count on them to really be thinking hard about how to best serve the public and always coming up with lots of innovative things for us to try to do. And I will say my teen librarians were also a particular favorite because they not only think outside of the box, they were never in the box to begin with. So that was always a great deal of fun. So let's see, did I answer the whole question or do
Yes. So how many years were you at Henrico County?
I was there for 11 years.
And and then you used a phrase that I would guess the majority of our libraries are not familiar with.
Oh,
Can you tell them what an opening day collection process looks like?
oh, okay. Well, so it depends from library to library. Henrico went big. They had a tax levy, or actually a bond referendum to get the funding for three new libraries right around the time I got there. So I had to go out and go to public meetings to talk about why the library was a great thing and why all the public people that came to those meetings should vote yes on that. Um, so they asked for a lot of money and they got it. And so our opening day collections ended up being completely new. Think of opening a brand new library with no books at all. So I bought books from the ground up, all kinds of materials. We were heavily involved with picking out the shelving and doing some other things along those lines as well. For the third library, I actually had transitioned into the public service administrator role, and I was much more involved with the building piece of it, and having punch lists and making sure that the builders were doing what they were supposed to, and those kinds of things. But at opening day collection, I basically had enough money to cover the first 2 years for each of the buildings. So I was juggling five different pots of money at any given time because I was buying for three new buildings and plus two pots of money for our regular, what I would buy for all the other branches. Um, and a lot of people were very concerned about what we were doing with the books that were um, left behind. We did try to move some to our regular buildings, but I will say there was a lot of weeding. And I was heavily involved with, we had gotten Collection HQ, and I was I was tasked with encouraging strongly all of our branches to weed and weed fairly heavily so that when it came time to close a building and move books over, there would be space in those buildings. And there was always a fine line between weeding just enough and going a little too far. We had some very influential patrons who kept a very close eye on how much we were weeding. So we really had to be very careful about that and make sure that we were doing our due diligence when we weeded. So I had two branch managers that never really were completely convinced that we needed to do that. One of them did it because basically he said, "Well, I love you, so I'll go ahead and do this." The other one, she and I just had to, we just had, I had to come out and help her before she was able to let some things go.
Weeding is an emotional process. So,
Yes.
and excuse me, and that's why here at CKLS, since you haven't been a part of that project yet, um, I go up and I have a conversation ahead of time. The board has documents they have to fill out, and then we go through the steps and we we talk about the sacred cows in our building and which things we shouldn't get rid of. And so that helps puts us in a similar spot. So I
Mhm.
do think that was an important part of your story to tell because that opening day is not familiar to most of our libraries because they inherited whatever was left, and hopefully CKLS had been in and helped it a little more before they came on duty. But some of them, we got to wait till they got there. So
And I will say, when I was at Enoch Pratt in Baltimore, I got a little list every month, and I had, if I'm remembering correctly, I could buy about 10 books a month. And I would spend time agonizing over which books to buy. Should I buy the award-winning diverse picture book, or should I buy the thing that I knew everybody was going to read, and how to balance those? So I have been on the yes, I had a project where I got to spend a whole lot of money, and that was really fun. But I also have been on the other side where I've had to really, really agonize over what I was purchasing because I didn't have very many dollars to stretch very far.
and you'll find that that's the case in any size library, whether you're Randall or Republic with towns of 100, or whether or not you're Kansas City, Missouri with considerably more money. Um, so, what are you excited about now that you've got 2 months underneath your belt?
Well, my first 2 months were really trying to get as much information from Gail and the team as I possibly could before her last day in the office. So now I get to actually go out and visit libraries. So that's what I'm most excited about. And I'm going to be hopefully the weather will not get bad anytime soon. So I will be able to schedule some visits to some different places. I've got one that I'm hoping to get scheduled starting December 1st. So that's really what I'm planning to do is come out and visit the libraries, get to know the communities, get to know the librarians, and anybody else you want me to get to know while I'm out there.
It is visiting libraries is the favorite part of my job because when we walk into a library, we don't know what we're walking into. And just like the good old reference question, I'm gonna pick on Chris because I can see her pop up in my screen. Chris will call me for something, but it's just like a reference question. That's really not what she wants to know. And so, what you think is a 30-minute visit or a 10-minute phone call sometimes turns into a 2-hour visit or a 30 or 40-minute phone call with backup emails. Um, so yes, it sounds like that's a goal for your first 6 months is to try to get out and see as many libraries as you can.
Yes.
So that's it truly is the rewarding part, getting to see how different the libraries are, um, looking at their similarities, and getting to know the person or people who are working in those libraries. And it's so interesting when we, as a stranger, walk into a town and you'll get a patron walk up and oh, she's great. Oh, you're gonna love it here. Or, are you new to town? So it's always interesting. So that's the fun part. What are you concerned about?
Okay, well, I think the thing that I'm concerned about is the thing that everybody is concerned about right now, um, funding. What's the political situation is certainly interesting these days, and funding is I think is at the front of all of our minds. What's going to be happening with our state and federal funding? How is that going to impact what we do? How is it going to impact what you do? So that's something that I'm, trying to keep a really close eye on. We talk about it in the office pretty much
Daily.
daily. And, at some point, we're also going to be starting to look at um, budgets and things and hopefully not having to make too many hard choices, but that is certainly something that is at the top of my mind. And then, of course, the other thing right now is intellectual freedom. I think everybody is, if you've been paying attention to the news, that's certainly been coming up a lot. And that is something that I think it's really important for all of us to be really thinking about how what our elevator speech is, for lack of a better word, the things that we want to make sure that we have memorized so that we don't have to stop and think about what to say when someone says, I really don't think this book should be on the shelf. Whether it's a patron or actually, for some reason, every time I fly, I end up in line with someone who wants to talk about libraries and about whether we still need them. And so, just making sure we know how to talk about those things, having our little talking points that we have memorized so it's not so hard to have a conversation with someone. And then I think the other piece of that is also really listening to them and trying to empathize and put yourself in their position. Even if you absolutely don't agree with them, try to remember that they're coming from a place where they're hopefully genuinely concerned and not just in it to make problems for people. I think this is you'll probably hear me say this a lot every time this subject comes up. I keep talking about making sure that your collection development and request for reconsideration policies are in really good shape. So if you haven't reviewed those recently, making sure that you do. There are things that you can do to tighten things up. I know actually before the pandemic, before all of this really started to bubble up, at Henrico, we had gone back and looked at our request for reconsideration policy and made sure that only our community members were the people that were able to do requests for reconsideration instead of someone from Texas or Florida. That there's a lot of that. So I think that's really important to make sure when you're reading through that you're thinking about, okay, how many times should we have a patron be able to make requests for reconsideration? Should they only be able to have one in play at a time, or should we only allow two a year? Or, how many times can the same book be challenged? Those kinds of things are things you definitely want to try to put into your request for reconsideration policy if you can. And then make sure that your collection development policy, especially the children's books and teen books, that you are very clear and have a good process for how you're collecting.
I think that's a topic that we talk about from the CKLS chair a lot. And I know for a while it might have felt like to some of our members that we were crying wolf a little early. But now as they watch, um, there's a lot of talk in those our school districts and even some of our public libraries. It doesn't just have to be a big library where it's happening. You get the right person. It doesn't even have to be a group of people. All you have to do is get the right person fired up on any given topic, and it can be it can change the course of local elections. It can change the course of how people are using their library, and and thank you for I guess reiterating the direction that we here at CKLS had been talking about going with the collection development policies themselves, because some of those factors were missing, and it was even missing in our own policy here at CKLS until 2 years ago, when the majority of the challenges were coming from groups of people, not from an individual, and being able to talk about that in that broader sense, so it doesn't seem quite so personal. And because um, a book challenge may be personal to the person who's challenging it, but it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be personal to the library staff and the board who are dealing with it. And so this is just that one of those little reminders. If you ever get there and you don't know where to start, your first phone call should be to CKLS. We'll go through the process with you, make recommendations, and we'll also share with you how to report your challenge. And if you do not want to do that, I'm happy to report on your behalf, because all of these issues of intellectual freedom, including when somebody's complaining about what you have in your display case or hanging on your bulletin board, those are all similar issues. So,
and I will say some libraries have either written into their request for reconsideration policy, or made separate policies about programs, displays. I have heard libraries that have completely gotten rid of displays because they wanted to just avoid the situation altogether. So displays tend to be where those flashpoints happen. So you want to really think about that as well.
and I know Liz and I have been working with the libraries that we do know have public display cases who've never had policies before, or where libraries who show children's artwork and such. Um,
I had
what
I had a question from a librarian about dynamic shelving and if that is considered just a display as well. And so that's sorry. I wanted to bring that up at a later time, but I wanted to interject. Sorry.
um, no, because that really is a good point to bring out, because um, sometimes librarians choose to make sure that the book that may get a challenge is sitting within a whole shelf full of books rather than at the end. And I know at one point there were graphic novels at the end of a shelf in a children's area in a public library, and they said, we found that there's not as much of a complaint if they're just shelved within a regular shelf. And so it's a little bit is where we put items. So
Yeah.
thank you for bringing up um the thoughts on intellectual freedom. That helps us know you a little better.
Oh, and I'd also mention that even your display cases where your public displays, you may want to think about having a disclaimer or a policy about those as well. We dealt with one in one of my branches in Henrico, where someone was very upset about a display that a woman had brought in her dolls from her childhood, and someone took great offense to one of the dolls, and we had
Oh,
it got,
I could guess.
yeah, it got very unpleasant to have to tell an 89-year-old why her beloved doll might possibly be offensive to someone. So
And
just,
we I have a couple libraries who contact me, and one said, I have a child who wants to display their Harry Potter stuff. And I'm like, it's a good question to ask them and let them know that um, this could have some ramifications, and your name is on it. So, so it's yes, I could almost guess what that doll might have looked like, and I could see why. Um, and that's not a question of politics. That's not a question of North or South. But I can see where that could come up. Um, so before you got here, what did you know about regional library systems, since you mentioned your list and regionals were not on it?
they were not on it. So when I was at Kansas City Public, I was heavily involved with a couple of different organizations. I was with I'm not sure what it's called now. I'm trying to remember. There was an organization in town that all of the public libraries paid into, and some of the academics as well. They did the courier for the region, and they also did a lot of training. So I have a lot of experience going out and doing trainings and things from that particular one, whose name will pop up as soon as this recording is over. But
That
I
Mala,
also, yes, thank you. They changed the
Mid-America
name on me, and
Mid-America Library Association.
yes, yes. And in the course of doing that, I also got connected with people from Neckles because they also did a lot of the help with training for that particular organization. So I ended up doing a fair number of trainings for them, going out and doing um, usually readers advisory. I did some older adult services, how to start a homebound book um, service if you wanted to do that. Um, but readers advisory was kind of my passion there. I really enjoyed talking about that. And I've done trainings at ALA, done programs and presentations for them as well, and
Are you
some
ready?
for the Virginia Library Association. So I can see joy. Um, so I had a lot of experience with that, and I got a really good grounding with a couple of the staff at Neckles, became personal friends. So I got a really good understanding of what they did all day, what their approach to working with libraries was, and how that kind of translated into their day-to-day operations. So I had a pretty good idea of how the systems were funded, how they operated on a large scale, not necessarily individually by system. Um, but really the thing that I knew the most about was the core values of making sure that all of the libraries were supported and successful. And that's the piece that appealed to me. It's what I enjoyed doing in Henrico County with helping my branches and my managers be as successful as possible.
Yes, that I'm sure your branches were different from one another depending on their geographic area and who they served, and of course you'll find that as you travel the 16 CKLS, 17 CKLS counties, sorry, and find that um, how they serve and who they serve can vary in that 9 miles between them. And so, but it is um, we can see your passion for books. So since that came up, what book number are you on for this year? Since you read a ridiculously high number of books a year.
Goodreads has failed me this year and has added some random empty records to my total. I think I'm at 279. I had to slow way down because of, the whole moving thing and learning a whole new job. So,
Well, we're sorry we ruined some of your
yeah,
reading time.
yeah.
You have to read boring grown-up stuff right now. So
Well, I am reading boring grown-up stuff, but I also am reading Buffalo Hunter, which is horror. And I think I have an Ann Patchett in my car doing the audiobook thing right now. So
excellent. So okay, so what's next for CKLS? Where's your vision or where you think we're going?
well, obviously I'm guided by the mission and purpose that is already established for all of the system libraries. And I have governing documents and a governing board, which it consists of some of you. So obviously I'm going to be guided by what those entities are directing. Um, Two of the things that I do want to focus on, though, this year are communication and also evaluating the services we have. You know, again, with funding the way it is and the uncertainty of all of that, I want to make sure that we are well positioned to pivot in whatever direction we need to, whether it's having to reduce our budget in some way or in a crazy world, actually being able to increase our budget. You never know, it could happen. But and also kind of looking at our funding streams and seeing what options we have in terms of helping staff or helping libraries with grants and things like that. So as far as communication, one of the first things we're focusing on, and this wasn't a project I started, but I think it's really important, is getting our website a little more usable for our both the public just interested in what we do and also for our librarians so they can find what they need a little more easily. And you know, if it's after hours and you need a document, you don't have to call someone to help you find it. You can actually go there and fairly easily be able to find that. So that's the two things that I have in mind for just the first 6 months to a year. Obviously, I'm getting a handle on the finances and things like that, which are also very, very important, but less fun than like building a website. I guess depending on who you are, maybe the finances are more fun. But that's really the things I'm hoping to focus on this year. And again, really getting to know the libraries and the library staff as well.
So, the website has been a conversation for a while, and I think when we moved to this latest version, was really the first time that we talked about that the website wasn't necessarily for the member libraries as the primary, and we built it based on what was there before, but we really didn't give a lot of credence to how the general public might use it and how our taxpayers what they would what to see on it. And so, as member libraries, this is an opportunity for you to have your voice heard. You can send a message to Andy, Ashley, Liz, or I, or Alicia, and say, "Hey, this part of the website works really, really well, or this doesn't." But more telling us what you think it needs, because we're um, we're a little lost. You know how you get to know your patrons so well that you jump to the conclusion that you know everything about them. Well, our website has kind of become that for us. We know how to work it, so we don't understand why somebody else can't. And it's not that um, to be totally honest with you, it frustrates us as much as it frustrates you because we know what it can be. We just haven't figured out how to step through the door to get it there. And this has been an ongoing conversation for quite some time, for almost a year now, because Michael was originally the fourth member of the committee. And I'm not talented enough to build a website, nor would I find it fun. So I don't know, both building a website and finances, neither one of them do a whole lot for me, but whatever. But I do want it to be more usable, and I want it to work for all of you. So, our feelings aren't going to get hurt if you say, "Hey, I don't even know why you have this here." Because sometimes we don't know either. But at some point we did do a very brief survey where we gave, um, I don't know, I think we sent it to 10 libraries and said, "Hey, find these 5 things." And when they found the 5 things, they're like, "Okay, that's great." And then but for one person it took them 3 minutes, and another person it took them 30 minutes. And so it's how our website is working. And right now, um, it's working just well enough. So I appreciate that that's moving our project a little higher. It is going to be some work, and there is going to be a little bit of challenge as we get it started. So looks like Joy and Heather are on their way home from somewhere. Yes, Miss Liz.
I have a question. And so this was sent to me privately, but so I'll just read it as I can. As technology continues to evolve rapidly and as AI becomes part of both everyday life and professional workflows, librarians will naturally feel its growing presence. This raises an important question. How will CKLS approach the development of policies, guidelines, and best practices to help member libraries navigate AI responsibility and in alignment with Kansas state standards? For many rural libraries, especially those that are half-time or minimally staffed, often the part-time or retired employees filling full-time director positions and responsibilities, the need is for clear, practical guidance is needed.
Well, I'm glad you asked because that is actually on my policies to update list or to create in this case. So we actually have formed a committee to start working on our own policy, our own internal policies, such as maybe not using AI to write your employee evaluations or things like that. But I think it also has broader implications. What I would like to do in the coming years, and I haven't really even talked to staff about this particularly, is bring in some outside speakers on some of that because I know there are some places that are working really hard on this. And so that would be kind of big picture, having some of those kinds of things. And then obviously, as we're getting our own policies and procedures and we're finding out things as consultants, we will be making sure that those get out to all of you and that we have examples of policies, examples of areas where there could be challenges for libraries, that's all part of that communication thing where we're getting that out to you and we're providing some trainings on how to make sure that you are in compliance um, and that you are having AI work for you, not instead of you, I guess, is what the phrase I've heard bantered about lately. Um, it is an odd time for AI. I don't think even though I was listening to something last night about people who are creating AI and are kind of on the cutting edge and they don't know what they're doing. So um, they have concerns about the ethics and making sure there are safeguards in place and laws to make sure that things are monitored correctly. So I think as those hopefully are put into place, we will have a better idea of how to move forward as libraries. And, I've been in discussions where there were people passionately against AI and passionately for it. Fall somewhere in the middle on that. But I think some of it is a wait and see, and some of it, but we will start working where we can on the more concrete things like having an AI policy that says, here's how you're going to deal with if you're going to have AI generate an image, how do you make sure it's not got copyright issues, things like that. Um, so we are working on it, but we are still in the beginning stages of that as well.
When last year we had our first speaker on AI, and it was a little more practical. It would throw a website into the chat and allow them to play and investigate in a little bit, and so that was really interesting. And then of course we have some coworkers who have jumped in with both feet and use it for a variety of things. And sometimes there's great answers there, and sometimes it takes you off track. So yeah, it's um, I'm where you are, I think. That traditional thinking, rather than the computer doing the thinking, is a little uncomfortable. But then we've also talked about the number of ways that AI has already been in use with autocomplete and emails and those kinds of things. And you're like, okay, so this is the part I like. But then how many times have we all been bitten by an autocomplete in an email? Because, library doesn't always come out as library, I've discovered. Um, so,
But yes, the AI policy is actually fairly high on the list of I've got several policies that we're kind of looking at and either creating or fine tuning. And that one is one of the new policies that I'm most interested in making sure gets done quickly. And then we will be passing what we've learned on to all of you.
that's good. That's one of those one of the examples of for me personally, I don't feel like I know enough to write a good quality policy. And so but yes, by being able to share that information with our members, we're more collectively informed, and we become smarter as a group.
Mhm.
So you attended KLA. Can you
Mhm.
tell us about the presentation that you were a part of there?
So I was on a panel with the other system librarians. AI could write a policy for AI policy for you. Very funny, Sherry. Sorry. So anyway, I was on this policy and or on this panel, and we basically talked about the history of the systems, why they were designed, some of the challenges, some of the benefits, and then each of the system librarians talked about their own system and some of the things that were of benefit to our member libraries. And also, we had some really lovely testimonials from some different staff. And I believe Joanne was one of the ones that wrote one for us. And it was very, very well done.
The last line in Joanna's from Swiss Center, Joanna's last sentence says, I'm sure every regional system endeavors to provide the best service for their member libraries. However, I'm positive CKLS is the best. But she did write a full page of a glowing testimonial. But I found they've updated some new things. That we will soon be sharing out for all of you. They've created, they've updated the map, the system map. Um, is it going to go
Not
into
sure. I don't
focus?
think it's going in
It's not going to
there.
go into focus.
Yeah.
But it has a code system to show you which member libraries are taxing. And it has the sections defined in a nice new usable map with all of the county names. And then it has some of the opportunities and challenges that each one of the system librarians is able to provide. And then there was a pretty
If you
new
pull it back, it might actually do better.
it
There
it
was a moment there where we could see it.
was okay.
No.
Diane's gonna grab the phone.
Okay.
So oh, okay. Oh, and I think it might be one of yours. I don't know. So, but I do have the copy of the document that they used, and Alicia will figure out what venue that will pass out that document so you all can take a look at it, because it is very informational to see the sameness and the differences between the member libraries. So was there anything that you attended at KLA that really struck you, or that you want to know more about?
Well, I went to a lot of the presentations by um, both CKLS presenters because I hadn't seen some of you present before. I also went to some of the sessions that our member libraries were presenting. So I went to one from Salina that was very well done on onboarding new staff. So that is I thought that was a really well done presentation. They had a lot of examples, a lot of handouts, which you know librarians love. So I really enjoyed seeing our member libraries participate in KLA. I also went to one that talked about meetings that I thought was pretty interesting, and it was on getting to the core of what you're trying to do in a meeting and not just, I mean, every once in a while a topic, the meeting is about we need to get this policy put together. And that is the purpose of the meeting is to try to get that hammered out. But in a lot of cases, for example, with a staff development day type situation, is the staff development day about developing staff? Is it about developing closer connections with your coworkers? Like trying to get down to what you're really trying to accomplish at a meeting. I thought it was an interesting way to look at that type of thing. I also went to a couple of the system librarians put on a how to budget for your library that was exceptional. They really dug in deep and talked about how to get money from your city or county treasurer if it doesn't seem like money's coming at the right time, um, and had some really great documents for that to support building your budget.
I believe that session is going to be recorded and will be available as a CKLS training because
Mhm.
that was I had three of our member libraries come up to me and say, "Can they come to us, or what can we do?" And I said, "That is that is a topic that is worthy of a conversation, but since they're system directors, they may not have the time to come and spend a whole day, but they can certainly do probably a 90-minute presentation for us to view."
Mhm. Yeah, that one
So
was really exceptional for anyone who's struggling with budget. I learned a few things, and I wasn't doing a public library budget anymore, but there were a few things in there. I'm like, oh, that's good to know. So, so those were I think, the highlights of my KLA. I did get to see some friends that I'd gone to library school with, or come up at it within, I've got a friend that works in Wichita and another friend that just retired from, well, she wasn't at this meeting, so that was a bad example, but just retired from Salina. So it's been nice to reconnect with some of my librarian friends in Kansas.
well, I did notice that Alicia was quite the popular one at conference. So, she ran with her own group, and you saw Liz in costume doing her thing in one direction, and Diane in costume doing her thing in another direction.
I
So,
do have photos.
so, so, what has been your highlight of the last few months?
Um, so the highlight of the last few months, I think there is such a sense of community and of this really genuine desire to help. Um, and being back in a role where I'm not telling people all the things they can't do, but helping people attain the things they want to do has been a really, really good change for me. Obviously there are going to be some things I have to say we can't do. The I Someone mentioned a really, really fancy coffee maker earlier, and I'm like, well, we're probably not going to do that, but we can get a less
So
fancy
no cotton
one.
candy every afternoon at 3?
No, but generally speaking, I did. There was kind of a standing joke between my counterpart and I in Henrico. And it was kind of a joke and kind of not that we were the fun police, where our role was to go, oh, you want to do that program? Have you thought about XYZ? Have we run it by the risk management department? Have we thought about if someone could set themselves on fire or what, whatever the thing was? It is kind of nice to be a little, obviously, I don't want anyone setting anyone on fire, but it's nice to be talking to people about how to get to where they want to go instead of all the reasons why they maybe shouldn't. So I think that's been the thing that I've been enjoying the most.
And I think that you'll find the longer you're here, that is what brings us the most joy is helping our member libraries find solutions, and finding their library joy is a lot of it, because after you do it for a while, and you've got 30 years into this as well, and after a while it's like, okay, I need something new to do, or at least I need to change gears so I can learn and do more. And this is the longest that I've stayed at any library job. And I think it's because it's not the same. Every day is different, like in a public library, but I never know what the next phone call or email is going to bring. And then I get to go out and learn new things. I get to go out and sometimes bond with a person that I don't know well at all, but go out and truly help them. And I'm very proud of the words that a librarian gave to me before she retired. And she says, Patty, you're a whole person consultant. And when that was said to me, I was like, okay. And so I think that may be something that might be just a little bit different from system to system. But I believe our libraries feel that we care about their communities and their libraries and the people who are working in those libraries, and that um, we're their friends and their coworkers as well. So
Yeah. And I will say that consistently when I'm talking, getting to know staff and talking to them, one of the things that gets said over and over by every single person that every single staff person has been, oh, we want what's best for the library. Oh, is this good for the libraries? Is this, so I I hear it very consistently across the board. So I think Gail did a great job of really getting across to all of the staff. The real mission is to make sure all of the libraries are supported and all of the libraries are successful. And I say that every time a library fails because it's because of I saw a library system kind of disintegrate next to me because of a book challenge. The whole library system disbanded, and that's just I think that is something that impacts all of us when that happens. And I want every library out there to be successful and to be um, moving forward in a positive way.
thank you for giving us some time today, for our friends out in Zoom land to learn a little bit more about you, and they will have yet even more opportunities to get to meet you in person. Um, December 16th is our annual reports Zoom meeting, and that is a little more overview from Liz's chair, and I will be watching the chat and trying to answer questions for you, and then be looking for the 2026 CE schedule. As soon as I get your summer library program orders off of my desk, I can do one more thing. So right now I got to finish that one. And but your CE calendar will be arriving soon to get your plans for the early few months of 2026. So we're so happy that you're with us today. Um, um, Liz, you can stop recording if you haven't done so.
Oh, I was going to say that if anybody is interested in me coming out, if you have like a special program that you want me to come out and visit for, be sure to let me know. I'm still learning about the system, so I'm not hearing about all of the great things you're doing. So let me know if there's something you want me to come out and visit and see. I'd appreciate the heads up because I do want to get to know you all.